The dust on 4 never stopped moving. It rolled across the ground like orange fog, covering everything in a thin layer of grit. Park wiped his hands on his already dirty cloth and looked out the window of his small repair shop. Another slow day. Another quiet afternoon on this forgotten border moon. Then he saw her. A young girl sat alone on a rock near the canyon edge. Her skin was pale blue, almost silver in the harsh sunlight. She had large, dark eyes that watched the sky with a hunger recognized. It was the look of someone wanting something they could never have. Above the canyon, other children flew their racing pods through the narrow passages. Their bodies moved with natural grace as their flight tendrils connected to the machines. The tendrils were long, thin appendages that grew from their backs, glowing faintly with bioelectric energy. Every was born with them. Every except this girl. Had heard about her. The settlement was small and people talked. Her name was, she was 12 years old. She was born without flight tendrils, a rare condition that made her an outcast among her people. The valued flight above everything else. A who could not fly was considered incomplete. Broken. The girl sat there every day watching, never joining, never flying. Went back to his work. He was fixing an old transport engine for a trader who would probably never pay him. That was his life now. 3 years ago, he had been a military engineer on Earth, building machines for war. Now he fixed broken things on a dusty moon at the edge of known space. It was better this way. Quieter. The next morning found outside his shop. Her mobility chair had stopped working. It was an old model designed for elderly who had lost control of their tendrils. On a young girl it looked wrong. Too big, too sad. She looked up at him with those dark eyes. She did not speak. She did not need to. Brought the chair inside and examined it. The power cell was cracked, leaking energy slowly. A simple fix for him. He replaced the cell with a spare from his storage room. He also noticed that the hovering system was poorly balanced, making the chair shake during movement. He adjusted it. Then he noticed the seat was uncomfortable, so he added padding from an old pilot cushion. When he finished, the chair worked better than new. Looked at it with surprise. She sat down carefully and moved around the shop. The chair was smooth now, stable, comfortable. She looked at and spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You did not have to do that." "I know," said, "but it needed fixing." She did not thank him. She simply nodded and floated out of the shop on her repaired chair, watched her go and returned to his work. She came back the next day, and the day after that. She did not need repairs. She just sat in the corner of his shop watching him work, did not mind. He was used to silence. He was used to being alone. His assistant was less patient. She was a young woman from Earth, cheerful and loud and always asking questions. She had followed to 4 2 years ago, insisting that he needed help. He did not, but she came anyway. "Why does she keep coming here?" asked one afternoon, looking at in the corner. "Does she want something?" "Maybe she just wants somewhere to be," said. Made a face but said nothing more. Days turned into weeks, became a regular presence in the shop. She started helping in small ways, handing tools when he needed them, sorting screws by size, cleaning parts with careful precision. She never spoke much, but she watched everything. She learned quickly. One evening, after he'd gone home, finally told her secret. "I want a race," she said. Stopped working, he turned to look at her. "The canyon races," she continued. "I watch them every day. I know every turn, every current, every trick the best pilots use. I want to fly just once, before they send me away." "Send you away?" His face became hard. "My family, they have decided I am too much trouble, too much shame. They are sending me to a care facility on a place for who are wrong." Felt something cold settle in his chest. He had seen such places. Different species, different planets, but the same idea. Storage for people the world did not want to deal with. "When?" he asked. After the rainy season, 3 months. Looked at the girl. She was small and thin, and her chair hummed softly beneath her. She had no tendrils. She had no way to connect to a racing pod. They had designed their technology around their bodies. Without tendrils, piloting was impossible. That was what everyone believed. But was human. Humans had a bad habit of ignoring impossible. "I will build you a," he said. Stared at him. "That is not possible, everyone says." "I know what everyone says." Picked up his tools and looked at her with steady eyes. "But I am not everyone. I am just a mechanic, and I think you should fly." For the first time since he met her, smiled. It was small and uncertain, like a flower trying to bloom in the dust, but it was real. Outside, the wind carried the sound of racing pods through the canyon. Somewhere above them, children flew without knowing how lucky they were. Somewhere in the settlement, his family was making plans to send her away. But in the small repair shop on the edge of nowhere, a human mechanic made a promise to a broken girl, and always kept his promises. Thought had lost his mind. "You want to build what?" she asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. For a girl without tendrils. That is like building a boat for someone without water. It makes no sense." Did not argue. He simply cleared the largest table in his shop and began spreading out old blueprints, racing pod designs, neural interface diagrams, bioelectric connection systems. He had collected these documents over his years on 4, never knowing why. Now he knew. They have built their entire technology around their tendrils, explained. They never imagined anyone would need to pilot without them, so they never tried to find another way. "Because there is no other way," said. "There is always another way, we just have to find it." Came to the shop every day now. She sat beside as he worked, asking questions, learning everything she could about the machines she dreamed of flying. She was smart. Smarter than most people gave her credit for. They treated her like she was simple because she was disabled. They were wrong. The first week was spent studying. Examined carefully with her permission, measuring her bioelectric field with borrowed sensors. What he found surprised him. Most generated bioelectric energy through their tendrils. Had no tendrils, so her body had adapted. Her natural field was actually stronger than average, spread throughout her entire body instead of focused in 2 points. "Your body is not broken," told her. "It is just different. We can work with different." He began designing a new kind of cockpit. Traditional pods connected to pilots through 2 tendril ports. His design would connect through multiple contact points along the pilot's hands, arms, and spine. Instead of 2 strong signals, the pod would read many smaller signals and combine them. The math was complicated. Filled notebooks with calculations, crossing out mistakes, starting over, trying again. Complained that he was not eating enough. Brought him food from the market. He ate while working, barely tasting anything. The second week was spent gathering parts. Proved her worth here. She knew every junkyard on 4, every crashed ship waiting to be stripped, every trader willing to sell damaged goods for cheap. She brought back boxes of components, each one carefully chosen. "Haptic sensors from a medical ship," she announced one day, dropping a heavy crate on the floor. "Neural dampeners from a wrecked pleasure yacht. And this," she held up a small, glowing crystal, "is a bioelectric amplifier from the old station. Cost me 3 months of savings." Looked at the crystal. It was exactly what he needed. "I will pay you back," he said. Laughed. "You cannot afford to pay me back. Just make sure the kid gets to fly." The third week was spent building. Worked through every night, sleeping only when his hands shook too much to hold tools. The frame of the came together slowly. It was smaller than traditional designs, built specifically for size. The engines were modified for precise control rather than raw speed. Every part had a purpose. The cockpit was masterpiece. Soft padding lined with sensor threads covered the seat and armrests. A spinal contact plate would rest against his back, reading the bioelectric signals from her nervous system. The control handles were covered with haptic mesh that could sense the smallest movements of her fingers. He called the finished machine the Sparrow. It was not as beautiful as the sleek pods. It looked rough, pieced together from a dozen different sources, but it was built with more care than any machine had ever made. "It is time to test it," he said on the morning of the 4th week. They took the Sparrow to a flat area outside the settlement, away from watching eyes, looked at the machine with a mixture of hope and fear. Her hands were shaking. "What if it does not work?" she whispered. "Then we try again," said. "That is what engineering is, trying again until it works." Climbed into the cockpit, helped her connect the contact points, adjusting the sensors until they read her bioelectric field correctly. The machine hummed softly as it powered up. "Close your eyes," instructed. "Do not think about the pod, think about flying. Imagine yourself in the sky." Closed her eyes. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Sparrow lifted off the ground. It was only a few inches at first, wobbly, uncertain, but it was flying, opened her eyes and gasped. She was hovering, she was actually hovering. "Move forward," said gently. "Imagine pushing the air behind you." Concentrated, the pod moved forward slowly, then faster. She turned left. She turned right. She rose higher, 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet above the ground. Was crying. She did not even try to hide it. Flew in a wide circle around them, her movements becoming smoother with each passing second. She was a natural. All those years of watching the races, memorizing every technique, had prepared her for this moment. Her body knew what to do. The Sparrow responded to her thoughts as if it could read her dreams. When she finally landed, her face was wet with tears, but she was smiling. She was smiling so wide it seemed like her face might break. "I flew," she said. "I actually flew." Knelt beside the cockpit and looked at her. This small, broken girl who the galaxy had given up on. This child who had never been allowed to dream. "Yes," he said quietly, "and you are going to fly again, many times." That night went home without her mobility chair. She went home in the Sparrow, flying low through the settlement streets, not caring who saw her. Let them stare. Let them whisper. Let them see what a broken girl could do. For the first time in her life, was not watching the sky. She was part of it. News traveled fast on 4. By the end of the 1st week, everyone in the settlement knew about the disabled girl flying a strange human-built machine. By the end of the 2nd week, the story had spread to neighboring moons. By the 3rd week, it had reached places never expected. That was when the ship arrived. It was a galactic Concord vessel, sleek and white and covered with official symbols. It landed at the settlement's small port with quiet authority. A crowd gathered to watch, whispering nervously. Concord ships rarely visited border moons like 4. When they did, it usually meant trouble. Ambassador stepped off the ship like she owned the ground beneath her feet. She was tall and thin, with silver-gray skin and 4 arms that moved with precise grace. Her species was called the, known throughout the galaxy for their roles in diplomacy and law. Her uniform was covered with medals and symbols that did not recognize. She walked directly to shop. She did not knock. She simply entered as if she had every right to be there. Was working on a broken water pump. He looked up at the ambassador with calm eyes. He had dealt with military officers before. He knew how to handle powerful people who thought they could push others around. "Park," the ambassador said. It was not a question. Human, former military engineer, currently operating an unlicensed repair facility on conquered territory. "The license is in processing," said. "Has been for 2 years." "That is not why I am here." Looked around the shop with cold interest. Her eyes stopped on the Sparrow parked in the corner. "I am here about that." Set down his tools. "It is just a racing pod." "It is not just anything." Walked closer to the machine, examining it without touching. "You have created a neural bypass interface, A system that allows piloting without biological connection points. Do you understand what that means? It means a disabled girl can fly. It means you have developed technology that could disrupt the entire transportation industry across 17 species. Turn to face him. They have spent centuries perfecting their tendril-based systems. Your little project makes all of that worthless. Felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. I was not trying to disrupt anything. I just wanted to help a kid. Human intentions do not matter. Human results matter. Pulled out a small tablet and began reading. Your device potentially violates Technology Sharing Treaty 47, Neural Interface Regulation 12, and the Biological Advantage Preservation Act. The Conquered has been watching human engineering for decades. You people cannot stop making things. Is that a crime? It is a problem. Put away the tablet. You solve things that other species have declared unsolvable. You look at our carefully balanced systems and break them without understanding the consequences. Entered the shop at that moment, still wearing her practice flight suit. She stopped when she saw the ambassador. Her eyes went wide with fear. Looked at her with an expression could not read. You are the pilot, the disabled one. Yes, his voice was small but steady. I am the one who flies. Not for much longer, addressed again. You have 1 week to dismantle this machine. If you refuse, I will impose sanctions on your business. You will be barred from working in conquered space. You may face criminal charges depending on what our investigation finds. And if I agree? Then this ends quietly. The girl goes back to her life. You go back to fixing water pumps. Everyone forgets this ever happened. Burst through the back door, having heard the entire conversation from the storage room. You cannot do this. She has done nothing wrong. He has done nothing wrong. Since when is helping someone a crime? Regarded her coolly. Since humans started helping in ways that threaten galactic stability, you do not understand how things work out here. There are systems, balances, species that have built their entire identities around certain abilities. When you give those abilities to everyone, you destroy what makes them special. Being special is not about what you can do, shot back. It is about who you are. That is a very human perspective. Walked toward the door. 1 week, dismantle the machine. This is your only warning. She left without looking back. The shop felt empty and cold after she was gone. Sat down slowly, her body shaking. They are going to take it away. They are going to take away my flying. Knelt beside her. He took her hands in his, feeling how small and fragile they were. But he also remembered how those same hands had controlled the sparrow with perfect precision. How she had flown circles around pilots with lifetimes of experience. Listen to me, he said quietly. No one is taking anything away from you. You were born to fly. That is not something anyone can destroy. But the ambassador said, I know what she said, but I also know something she does not understand. Looked into his eyes. Humans are stubborn. We do not give up just because someone tells us to, and I am very, very stubborn. Crossed her arms. So what do we do? Stood up and looked at the sparrow. He thought about the weeks of work, the sleepless nights, the moment when had first lifted off the ground and everything had changed. Then he thought about the annual canyon run, the biggest race on 3 days away. The ambassador wants us to be quiet, he said slowly. She wants us to disappear. She wants everyone to forget this ever happened. And smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made a decision. We are going to do the opposite, is going to race, and the whole galaxy is going to watch. Stared at him. That is either the bravest thing I have ever heard or the... Probably both, admitted. Looked up at him with those large dark eyes. The fear was still there, but something else was growing beneath it. Something that looked a lot like hope. Do you really think I can do it? She asked. Put his hand on her shoulder. I think you were meant to. The morning of the canyon run was bright and hot. Orange dust filled the air as thousands of spectators gathered along the cliff edges. Flags from a dozen different species waved in the wind. Music played from scattered speakers. The smell of strange foods drifted through the crowds. Stood in the preparation area making final adjustments to the Sparrow. His hands were steady even though his heart was not. He had not slept in 2 days. Every hour had been spent improving the machine, checking every connection, testing every system. Appeared beside him, breathing hard from running. She is registered. I had to forge 3 documents and bribe 2 officials, but she is in. Anyone know yet? Everyone knows, pointed toward the viewing platforms. Look. Looked. Ambassador was standing on the official Concord platform, surrounded by guards and advisors. She was watching the preparation area with cold, focused eyes. When she saw looking back, she did not look away. She knew, and she was not leaving. Arrived with her mother and father walking behind her. Her parents looked uncomfortable, almost ashamed. They had not wanted her to race. They still saw her as broken, as an embarrassment, but they could not stop her either, not anymore. "Are you ready?" asked. Nodded. She was wearing a flight suit that had modified to fit her small body. Her hands were covered with sensor gloves that would help the Sparrow read her movements more precisely. She looked scared. She also looked determined. "I practiced the canyon route 100 times in my mind," she said. "I know every turn, every current, every dangerous spot." "Good, but forget all that during the race. Knelt so they were at the same height. Do not think, just feel. Let your body and the machine become one thing. Trust yourself." The starting horn sounded across the canyon. 18 racers moved to the starting line. 17 sleek pods, their pilots connecting their tendrils to the neural ports with practiced ease, and one rough, pieced-together machine with a small blue girl at the controls. The crowd noticed. Whispers spread like fire. Who was this disabled child? What was that strange human machine? Was this some kind of joke? Then they saw her rise. They saw the Sparrow lift off the ground with perfect control. They saw it take her position at the starting line, calm and focused, ready to race against pilots who had been flying since before she was born. The whispers turned to silence. The silence turned to wonder. The starting signal flashed. 18 pods launched into the canyon. Fell behind immediately. The other racers were faster off the start, their tendrils giving them instant connection to their machines. She struggled through the first section, falling to last place as the crowd watched with mixture of hope and disappointment. Gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. "Come on," he whispered. "You can do this." The canyon twisted into its first major turn, a sharp right angle that many racers took too fast. 3 pods scraped against the walls. One spun out entirely, crashing against the rocks in a shower of sparks. But took the turn perfectly. She had watched this race 100 times. She knew exactly where the dangerous spots were. She knew exactly how much speed she could carry into each curve. She passed the crashed racer. Then she passed another who had slowed after hitting the wall. Then another. By the halfway point, she was in 10th place. The crowd began cheering her name. Humans and other species all shouting together. The story had spread. Everyone knew about the disabled girl who was not supposed to fly. Everyone wanted to see what she could do. Ambassador watched without expression. Her advisors whispered urgently in her ears. She ignored them. The second half of the canyon was more dangerous. Narrow passages, unpredictable wind currents, rock formations that appeared suddenly from the dust clouds. Many experienced pilots slowed down through this section, choosing safety over speed. Did not slow down. She weaved through the obstacles like she had been flying her whole life. The Sparrow responded to her thoughts instantly, turning and diving and climbing as if it could read her dreams. She passed 3 more racers, then 2 more. She was in 5th place with 1 section remaining. Then disaster struck. A sudden wind gust caught the Sparrow from the side, lost control for a split second. The pod spun wildly, crashing against a rock pillar with a terrible sound. Parts broke off and fell into the canyon depths. The crowd gasped, felt his heart stop. But the Sparrow kept flying, damaged, smoking, shaking badly but still in the air. Fought with the controls, her face twisted with effort. She was not giving up. She was not going to stop. She crashed again in the final stretch. This time she hit the ground, bouncing twice before regaining altitude. The crowd was screaming now. Some were crying. The finish line appeared ahead. 3 pods crossed before her, then crossed, smoke trailing behind her broken machine. 4th place, out of 18 racers. The canyon erupted with cheers louder than anything had ever heard. Species that had never agreed on anything stood together, screaming with joy. His name echoed off the rock walls like thunder. She landed roughly, the damaged Sparrow barely holding together, and ran to her, pulling open the cockpit, looked up at them with exhausted, tear-filled eyes. "I did not win," she said. Laughed. It was a strange sound, somewhere between joy and relief, and something else he could not name. "You finished," he said. A girl without tendrils in a sport designed to exclude her, racing against the best pilots on the moon. "You finished." Looked at the crowd still cheering her name. She looked at her parents standing nearby. Their expressions changed from shame to something that might have been pride. She looked at the Sparrow, broken and smoking but still beautiful. Then she smiled. "Yes," she said quietly, "I did." From her platform, Ambassador watched everything. Her face was still unreadable, but something in her eyes had shifted. Something had changed. She pulled out her communication device and began typing a message to the Galactic Concord headquarters. History had just been made on a dusty border moon, and she was going to have to explain it. The shop was quiet that night. The celebrations had finally ended, and the crowds had gone home. Only the dust remained, settling slowly in the orange moonlight. Sat alone with the Sparrow. The machine was badly damaged. Half the sensors were broken. The left engine barely worked. The frame was cracked in 3 places. It would take weeks to repair if it could be repaired at all. He picked up his tools and began dismantling it piece by piece. Ambassador had given him an order. He had ignored that order to let race. Now the race was over. Now it was time to face the consequences. He had removed half the engine when the door opened. Stood in the entrance, her silver-gray skin pale in the lamplight. She was alone. No guards, no advisors, just her. "You are destroying it," she said. "You ordered me to." "I did," walked closer, her 4 arms folded behind her back. "Do you know what happened after the race today?" "Kept working. I imagine I am in a lot of trouble." "You are, but that is not what I meant." Sat down on a nearby crate, which surprised. Ambassadors did not sit on dirty crates in mechanic shops. 12 hours after the race, my office received communications from 27 different worlds. By the end of the day, that number was over 300. Stopped working and looked at her. "News of your girl spread faster than anything I have seen in 30 years of diplomacy," continued. "A disabled child flying in a competition designed to exclude her, using technology built by a human in a tiny repair shop. It captured something I did not expect." "What kind of communications?" "Demands, questions, anger." The expression was strange, almost confused. "Disabled individuals from dozens of species want to know why their engineers never tried what you did. Parents of children born different are asking why we accepted impossible when you clearly did not. Advocacy groups are threatening protests if the Concord punishes you." Sat back trying to understand what she was saying. "You came here to arrest me." "I came here to stop you. I thought you were just another reckless human causing problems without understanding the bigger picture." Stood and walked to the Sparrow, looking at its broken form with new eyes. "I was wrong." She turned to face him. The Conquered has two choices now. We can suppress this, punish you, send the girl to that care facility, destroy the machine and pretend none of this happened. She paused. That choice will lead to civil unrest across multiple systems. Species that have never agreed on anything are united in wanting to see what happens next. And the other choice was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, almost humble. I have spent my entire career maintaining balance, keeping things stable, preventing change that could disrupt the order of things. She looked at the broken machine. But today I watched a little girl do something impossible, and I watched thousands of people cheer for her, not because she won, because she tried, because someone believed she could. She reached into her uniform and pulled out a document. She handed it to. He read it slowly. His hands began to shake. This is a proposal. The Conquered will fund a research initiative to develop adaptive technology for disabled individuals across all species. A center dedicated to finding solutions for those who have been told they cannot be helped. Pointed at a specific line in the document. I have recommended that you lead the engineering division. Could not speak. He stared at the document, reading the words again and again, unable to believe they were real. Why? He finally managed. After everything you said about human engineering being dangerous. Because I was looking at it wrong. Walked to the door and stopped. Humans are dangerous. You do not respect limits. You do not accept impossible. You look at problems that have existed for centuries and solve them in weeks because you never learned you were supposed to fail. She turned back to him. That is terrifying. It disrupts everything. It breaks carefully built systems. Her voice became quiet. But sometimes things need to be broken. Sometimes a little girl needs to fly even when the universe says she cannot. She left without another word. Sat alone with the proposal in his hands. The weight of it felt impossible. Him leading a galactic research initiative. Him changing the lives of millions of disabled beings across the stars. The door opened again. Stood there, wrapped in a sleeping blanket, her eyes barely open. I heard voices, she said. Is everything okay? Looked at her. This small, brave girl who had changed everything just by refusing to give up. He thought about all the others like her across the galaxy. Children told they were broken. Adults hidden away in care facilities. Entire lives wasted because no one ever thought to try. Everything is more than okay, he said. Everything is about to change. He showed her the document. He explained what it meant. As understanding dawned on her face, tears began streaming down her cheeks. You mean other children like me, they will get to fly too. Not just fly. Pulled her into a hug, feeling her small body shake with sobs of joy. Walk, run, swim, whatever they dream of. We are going to build a future where different does not mean broken, where everyone gets a chance. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise over 4. Orange light spilled through the windows, touching the sparrow with gold. Arrived early, carrying breakfast. She found and asleep in the shop, the proposal still clutched in his hand. She read it, her eyes growing wide. Then she smiled, sat down quietly and waited for them to wake up. There was a lot of work ahead, a new center to build, new technologies to develop, millions of lives to change. But for now, in this small moment, everything was perfect. A stubborn human mechanic had made a promise to a broken girl. He had kept that promise, and somehow, in the process, he had started something that would ripple across the stars. That was what humans did. They built things, not because they were ordered to, not because it was profitable, but because somewhere someone needed help. And as slept peacefully in the morning light, dreaming of flying through endless skis, the galaxy began to understand something that humans had always known. Nothing was impossible. It just had not been fixed yet.